They're called the Fantastic Four, but unfortunately their movies haven't been all that fantastic. This is the fourth one. Are 4 movies needed to make the Fantastic Four fantastic? Stay tuned. And welcome to my Safe Gayven, everybody. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video and joining me here on the Black Gay Comic Geek channel. If this is your first time checking me out, checking out one of my videos, checking out the channel in general, let me introduce myself. My name is Michael. I call myself the Black Gay Comic Geek. And I always say the things I love to talk about here on the channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic, or any variation of the 4. So I mostly like to talk about fantasy, superheroes, comic books, action movies, horror movies, sci-fi, and of course I like to talk about black representation and queer representation. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you think your representation matters, representation equals normalization, do me a favor, help me continue to grow the channel by hitting that subscribe button. Also, whether you're subscribed or not, your love doesn't cost a thing. Hit that like button. It'll really help with the YouTube algorithm, getting this video out there, get my channel out there so I can continue to grow, so I can get more eyes on the videos, so I can hopefully get to 12,000 subscribers, 13,000, 15, 20, 100,000. I can have that YouTube silver play button behind me. So fingers crossed, guys, that you do me that favor. Please, 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 please hit that like button. Now, with that said, guys, we are here for the 4th time, but technically the first time on this channel, but another Fantastic Four movie, but the first Fantastic Four movie in the MCU. It is called Fantastic Four, or The Fantastic Four First Steps. I got to see it yesterday, so thank you, Disney, for an early screening. And so, yeah, guys, is 4 times the charm? This movie was directed by Matt Shakman, who I believe was the director of WandaVision. Did he do WandaVision? Hold on, let me check real quick. Yes, he was the director of WandaVision, and a lot of people loved WandaVision between the combination of his directing and Jack Schaefer's writing. Everybody, it was one of the highest rated of all the Disney Plus shows. That's why Jack Schaefer ended up getting Agatha all along, and now Matt Shakman was rewarded with Fantastic Four: The First Step. So with that said, is Fantastic Four fantastic? Let's get into it. So the synopsis is Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Human Torch, and The Thing face their most daunting challenge yet as they defend Earth from Galactus and Silver Surfer. So basically with that synopsis right there out of the way, if you saw the first Fantastic or the second Fantastic Four movie, Rise of the Silver Surfer, which I didn't think was bad, but it definitely could have been better. It could have been a lot better. But if you've seen that movie, this is basically the same story more or less. So they're not treading new ground in terms of that. We've seen it already. The story is pretty much the same. So this is a non-spoiler review, but like, again, that movie came out like 20 plus years ago. Silver Surfer shows up. He heralds the coming of Galactus. Galactus comes up or shows up, and the Fantastic Four figure out a way to stop Galactus from destroying the planet Earth. But obviously the difference is it now takes place in the MCU, and it's a whole new cast of the Fantastic Four. Pedro Pascal playing Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby playing Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn playing Johnny Storm, and Ebon Moss-Backrack playing Ben Grimm. And honestly, despite the fact that the story was basically the same as Rise of the Silver Surfer, I have my criticisms about this movie, and I'll get to that, but I love this movie. And with that said, I guess 4 times is the charm because I had a lot of fun with Fantastic Four. I thought Fantastic Four was fantastic. Like, even after watching the movie, me and a couple friends, we went to a bar afterwards to talk about it, and I was like, I kind of want to watch it again. Like, immediately after watching the movie. And part of it, and one of the strongest things I will say about this movie is shout out to Michael Giacchino, who also directed Werewolf by Night. That was his directorial debut, but he's known for being the person that does a lot of Marvel scores in the MCU. Like, his most famous scores, specifically in the MCU, is the Marvel fanfare that plays at the beginning. Dun, 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 That he did that. He scored Doctor Strange. He did Spider-Man No Way Home, Far From Home. He also scored Werewolf by Night. And then jumping out of Marvel, he scored Coco. He scored The Incredibles 1 and 2. He also scored The Batman and a bunch of other movies. So like he clearly knows what he's doing. And like the score for this movie is what I really like. Not that's the only thing, but that's like the first thing that like really got me invested, because like before the movie starts, it starts with that great Fantastic Four score and playing in IMAX theaters and with the loud surround sound and all that other Fantastic Four. Like, I was just like, oh, I'm hyped. I'm ready. I'm ready to get into this. And like that main Fantastic Four cue and theme, it like played throughout the movie, but it was always different in the way he played it, different score cues. Not that that was the only score that he played throughout the movie, but like, I just appreciated like all the different ways he injected that same theme throughout the movie, and it helped make the movie that much more hype. Now, with that said, in addition to the score and going into Matt Shakman's directing, like this movie, I would say out of a lot of the MCU movies, is one of the most visually stunning of all the MCU movies. Like the thing about this movie, especially with it being Fantastic Four was the first Marvel comic, or not the first Marvel comic, but like the first real comic that like launched and propelled Marvel Comics to be what it was. As a matter of fact, Stan Lee was about to quit comics, but I don't know if you guys know the story, but his wife, because he was writing a bunch of, I think he was doing like horror comics, or he was doing a bunch of comics that he wasn't interested in. I don't know if it was horror, but he was doing comic strips that he wasn't interested in, and they weren't really gaining any traction. And so his wife told him, before you quit, sit down and actually write the comic that you would want to read, that you would want to write. Do that and see how that goes. And then if that doesn't go anywhere, then you can quit. And so that's when he created the Fantastic Four with the legendary artist Jack Kirby, and that took off. And that essentially blew up Marvel to what we know today. Marvel would not be where it is today. There would be no MCU. There would be no Marvel Comics had it not been for the Fantastic Four with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And so with that, in the original comics, a lot of characters that we know and love spun off from the Fantastic Four, like Black Panther, who showed up first in the Fantastic Four, the Inhumans, Silver Surfer, the Watcher, Galactus, and then with Silver Surfer, Mephisto first showed up in a Silver Surfer comic, and a bunch of other characters started off in Fantastic Four. There's a reason they are called the first family of Marvel. And so going back to my point, the Fantastic Four, I believe, came out in 1962. And so to pay an homage to the fact that the comic came out in the 60s, there was a lot of 60s aesthetics in this movie, interspersed with the fact that this movie does take place in modern times, and even beyond modern, because they have technology that we don't have or will never probably have in today's age, but people still looked in that 60s aesthetic. And calling into the fact that Matt Shakman did WandaVision, which, you know, the first couple episodes took place like the I Dream of Jeannie, Dick Van Dyke type of time. Matt Shakman did a great job in like the look and the cinematography and this capturing the 60s quality, because this movie, I was gonna say show, this movie takes place on an alternate Earth. They said Earth 828, and so this is their version of the world. And in this version of the world, the Fantastic Four, at least from what they said in this movie, are the only heroes of this world. And so because of that, this movie had a very unique look that I really appreciated. Basically, a retro futuristic world. And then also the thing that I appreciated and enjoyed, going back to what I said earlier about the fact that, like, if you saw Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, it's pretty much the same storyline. They're not really treading any new ground in that. But even with that, even though the storyline overall is pretty much the same, it still treaded new ground in terms of like the execution of that storyline, the things that they did to ultimately come to the same conclusion of Rise of the Silver Surfer. So there were things that we've seen, or rather things that we saw in this movie that we didn't see in Rise of the Silver Surfer. And then also, most importantly, thank God they actually did a comic accurate Galactus and we didn't get a giant fucking fart cloud. So thank you, Marvel, for that. But also, like, there were moments that, like, me and my friend, we would like lean over to each other and be like, this is what's gonna happen next. And we were completely wrong. Like, we thought we knew what was gonna happen and ended up being taken aback. And so that also caused a level of enjoyment being proven wrong, because not all movies are predictable or whatever. And then also, like, movies being predictable doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing, because if you see a certain number of movies or storylines, like, there's no new storyline under the sun. But even just the fact that we thought we knew what was gonna happen, and then even like moments from the comics where I was like, oh, this is a moment from the comics so okay, so this is what's gonna happen next. And then it didn't happen. I was like, oh, wait, what's gonna happen? So that also made the movie more fun and interesting to me. And speaking of interesting, like, let's talk about the Fantastic Four: Pedro Pascal, Joseph Quinn, Ebon Backrack, and then Vanessa Kirby. Like, I love them as the Fantastic Four. When Pedro Pascal was first announced as Reed Richards, I was just like, real, like, he's the Mandalorian, he's Joel in The Last of Us, he's Oberyn Martell from Game of Thrones. Now he's in the Fantastic Four. Like, I was just like, granted, no shade against Pedro Pascal. This man has obviously been putting in the work, even going back to the fact that he had that cameo in one episode of season 4 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But I was just like, every time I turn around, like, this man, he is in everything. He was just in that movie recently with Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson, which I heard was good. I need to see that. So I was just like, as Reed Richards, like, really? I don't see, like, not to say he'd probably do a bad job, but I'm just like, I don't see it. Like, no, like, but I was just like, no, like, I don't like it. And then also, like, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, I wasn't a fan of that casting either. But then after watching this movie, I love them as the Fantastic Four. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards definitely turned me around. Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm definitely turned me, at least in terms of the performance of it. Now, I will say, I still feel like, in terms of the look, he still doesn't necessarily have the look of Johnny Storm to me. And I'm not saying this to be, like, negative or mean or anything like that. Like, I don't think Joseph Quinn is unattractive. He is not unattractive. But when I think of Johnny Storm, like, even with his powers, like, I feel like Johnny Storm should just be, like, 100% without question. He should just be sexy, hot. And I don't necessarily feel that from Joseph Quinn, but in terms of, like, his, again, not that I think he's unattractive, but in terms of the performance of the character, I thought he did a really good job. And then even, like, his chemistry with, like, Ben Grimm and the banter that they had, I wish they had a little bit more of the banter, the love-hate relationship, and the pranks that they usually have between the two of them. But I liked his interaction with his sister, Ben Grimm, Reed Richards. Like, he was good as Johnny Storm. Basically, by the end of the movie, they all sold me on their characters. I had no doubt in my mind that Vanessa Kirby would be a great Sue Storm. I absolutely loved her characterization as Sue Storm, and even the way they wrote Sue Storm. Like, what people don't realize is Sue Storm is the MVP of the Fantastic Four. Yes, Reed Richards might be the smartest person really in the Marvel universe. Obviously, that fluctuates here and there. There are times, you know, they say Moon Girl is smarter. His daughter, Valeria, she's smarter. So, like, it fluctuates, but he is one of the smartest, at least top 3, top 5 smartest people in the Marvel universe. But even despite that, Sue Storm is the one that's really the anchor that connects them all, and the one that's actually the most powerful of the Fantastic Four. And we got to see all of that with this characterization of Sue Storm. We got to see her be the anchor, and we saw how powerful, like, they let her cut loose. And Ebon as Ben Grimm, he was the lovable blue-eyed, the lovable blue-eyed thing. Now, I will say, though, to do a slight comparison, even though there are two completely different movies, even though they're both superhero movies, I will say the chemistry between David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan as Lois and Clark was way more palpable and hotter than I feel like the chemistry between Pedro and Vanessa was. But then also when you think about who Reed Richards is and somewhat of the disconnect that he is when being so smart, it also kind of made sense to me. And with that said, I do appreciate and like that this movie focused on the fact that, not even focused, but like we got to see how kind of disconnected Reed Richards is from a lot of things. And had it not been for his family, had it not be for the Fantastic Four, isolated in his thoughts, he would possibly go to the dark side. For the people that read like the Ultimate Universe, like you think about the Maker, the evil version of Reed Richards, he would potentially be a better version of Doctor Doom had it not been for the Fantastic Four. And I like that they slightly touched on that a little bit. How in many ways, even though Reed Richards is a hero, in some ways he's not a good person. But with that said, to get into my slight criticisms, and even though my criticisms are slight, and it didn't not necessarily took away from my enjoyment of like loving the movie, because I still love the movie, but I still think these criticisms, like if they were addressed or if they weren't there, like I would have just like absolutely been over the moon about this movie. And one of those criticisms is Julia Gardner's Silver Surfer. And not so much in terms of the actor herself, but in how they characterize that character. For the most part, there wasn't really anything there, especially when you get into the fact that they did This is an alternate version of the Silver Surfer. If you guys know Silver Surfer is Norrin Radd from the comics. He comes from the planet of Zen-La. And when Galactus came to basically devour and destroy his planet, he sacrificed and gave of himself to become the first Herald of Galactus. And his love interest, her name was Shalaba. Side note, because I'm sitting here editing the video and I noticed I kept saying Shalaba with no L. And I'm like, Michael, you know it's Shalabal. Like, what the hell? But I'm like, I'm not going back and re-editing that. But just for those people on the internet, because like, he don't know what he's talking about. I know it's Shalabal, but for whatever reason, I kept saying ba. And now I'm hearing it. I'm like, ugh. But anyway, back to the video. Well, in this alternate universe, Shalaba is the one that sacrificed herself to save Zen-La. And being that they did this whole switcheroo of Shalaba versus Norrin Radd, I thought we would have got a little bit more of the character, but we really didn't. I feel like we got more from Silver Surfer and Rise of the Silver Surfer than we did in this movie. Like, Silver Surfer was there a lot throughout the movie, but in terms of like learning more about the character and interacting with them, I feel like we didn't really get much in this movie compared to Rise of the Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer was really just a plot device, and so that's a criticism. Then also, this is a small nitpick that I'm about to call out. One thing that did kind of irk me a little bit about the movie was in the depiction of the Fantastic Four's powers. And again, this is like a small roll your eyes, barely even worth mentioning type of nitpick, but it still bothered me a little bit. Like, the whole point of the Fantastic Four, at least in their suits, is because they were in their suits when they got hit by the cosmic rays, their suits are able to handle their powers. And so Reed Richards is able to stretch in his suit. When Invisible Woman turns invisible, she's able to change her suit invisible. When Johnny Storm flames on, he's able to flame on with the suit and it doesn't burn up. But in this movie, you saw Johnny Storm flaming on in regular clothes, and yet his clothes didn't burn up. He would flame off and he would still be fully clothed. Where you think about the original Fantastic Four movies with Chris Evans, when Johnny Storm engulfed himself in flames, he would end up being naked. I remember that scene where he was like naked and Chris Evans, and of course Chris Evans being Chris Evans and being fine, we had that naked Chris Evans scene as Johnny Storm, but we didn't get that in here. Not to say, and I did, but not to say I wanted to see him naked. Like I said, I did, but it's like seeing him flame on and or just like burning part of his clothes, and like his clothes would be perfectly fine. Or like there was a scene where Reed Richards was in a regular suit and he like stretched his arm to like grab something on like a board or something like that, and the suit stretched along with him, and I'm like, that shouldn't happen. Or there was a moment where Sue Storm was in regular clothes and she turned invisible and the clothes turned invisible with her. And I was just like, again, a very small nitpick, but that's something that did bother me. And Sue didn't bother me as much because she does eventually get to the point that she can make herself and her regular clothes and other people invisible as well. But like Reed stretching in a regular suit and the suit stretching with him, I was like, it should have ripped. But again, very small nitpick. But what I'm not nitpicking about is your boy right here, Galactus, Gallon of Ta. I really liked how Galactus was depicted in this movie. And then the voice actor that does Galactus, I'm not sure of his name, Ralph Ineson, he was scary. He was menacing. He was everything that I imagine when I hear the voice of Galactus. And even in the way the world reacted to him, the Fantastic Four reacted to him, the Silver Surfer reacted to him, like he was the world devourer. Why can't I say that word? World devourer. The world eater. I do wish though we got to see more displays, even from Silver Surfer, more displays of the power cosmic. So that's another criticism. And actually, with that said, I feel like they didn't really display a lot of the Fantastic Four's power. More specifically, like Reed. We saw Reed like stretching his arms and legs, but like I wanted to see more like moments of like him maybe turning into a ball or changing a bunch of shapes, stretching his body so wide that he can like glide or all. Like we didn't really see much of that from Reed. It was just like stretch arm here, stretch arm there, stretch leg. So that's another criticism. Like in terms of like powers, we didn't get to see enough of that. Even like Sue Storm, she could take her invisible powers and make them into like different constructs and things like that. We didn't really get to see that. She just basically made force fields and turned invisible. So that's another thing I wish we got to see more of, all the different ways that they can use their powers. But like I said, outside of that, I freaking love this movie. Again, I want to see it again. The score, the soundtrack, the characters, the interpretation. Like, Fantastic Four. We finally got a good Fantastic Four movie, and I can't wait to see these characters again. With that said, there were 2 post-credit scenes in this movie. The first post-credit scene, obviously, it leads into Doomsday. It wasn't what I was expecting or thinking it was going to be. I'm not going to say what it is or what I thought it was going to be, because then that tells you it wasn't in the spoilers or whatever. But I was expecting it to be something different, but at the same time, I was still just like, okay, Doomsday is coming. Doomsday is getting closer. And so yeah, then you got the second post-credit scene. The second post-credit scene was cute. It wasn't really as important as the first one, but it was still cute. And so yeah, with that said, Fantastic Four, I enjoyed it. Go see it, because I'm going to go see it. I'm going to see it again. I'm probably going to see it again and again and a couple more times. And I know people are going to ask me, what did you like better, Superman or Fantastic Four? They're both 2 different movies, but I enjoyed both of them. I enjoyed both of them. If you watch my spoiler and non-spoiler review, I did enjoy both of them. But I would say I like the Fantastic Four better than I did Superman. But there's things in Superman that I like better than in Fantastic Four. Like I mentioned, the chemistry between David and Lois, and and other things in Superman that I like better. But overall, I think I like the Fantastic Four more than I like Superman. But that doesn't mean I dislike Superman, or that doesn't mean don't go see Superman or don't go support Superman. Support both. Have a super fantastic movie experience. But with that said, once you guys see Fantastic Four, because it comes out officially tonight, because today's Thursday when this video goes up, let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, interact on this video for the all gay rhythm. If this is one of your first time checking out one of my videos, hopefully check out the other videos on my channel. If you like what you see, hit that follow button. Tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. Hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.